the ESPN app and on YouTube. You are watching us right now on our YouTube channel /ESPN Esports, and I'm here with head coach of G2, Jahzo. By the way, he is the longest tenured coach manager in Rocket League today, which is a quite the accomplishment because there's a lot of turnover in Rocket League. So the fact that you've been able to keep your job so long, Jahzo, speaks to the fact that the right people don't hate you. So congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
You did it. What else we're going to do here is normally, if you watch the program, we love to give our power rankings. We love to give you top fives and top tens. Jahzo went overboard. He gave us a top 10. He's like, you know what? I'm going to rank every single team in the NA region. I'm going to adjudicate them all, as he normally does in the course of his job. Gives us the top 10 of NA. And we're going to get to that right now. We're actually going to give you 6 to 10 right away. Take us through, Jahzo. You don't have to go through every single one in exquisite detail, but just tell us some of the more surprising picks here in your 6 to 10 and why you put them there.
Start at the bottom. Ghost, recent pickup. They've been showing some definite top 8 competitiveness. I have them alongside Alpine, who both teams have shown they can take down some of the other teams nearing the top 4. They show up, they take some games off of everyone else in the top 4. So I have no choice but to put them at 9 and 10 respectively, Alpine and Ghost. E United, I have at 7. They recently went through roster change, or 8, sorry, wrong number. E United at 8. They went through roster change, bringing Tristan up above Hoxer. They've been playing fantastic. They broke into the top 8 multiple times throughout regionals, maybe not regionals, I'm not sure. My memory's disappointing me right now, but they've had some better performances in grid, so I have no choice but to put them at 8th. They're still kind of being locked out by Rogue at 7th, and obviously KCP, who's elevated a lot. Beast mode has been popping off and elevating their team to a whole nother level. They're now number 6, knocking on the door of top 5.
So now we're going to get to our top 5, and KCP, like you mentioned, not in the top 5. Very impressive week for them. Did you need to see more from them or just more longevity in order to consider them for the top 5?
I was actually considering them for top 5 above my 5th place team.
Okay.
But it's only because of that lack of longevity. Like, we've only seen it for a couple months out of them. If we get another split, then yeah, I put them consistently top 5.
You had mentioned the last time you were on Behind the Wheel a couple months ago that they weren't necessarily on your radar very high, but they've definitely improved. But you still need to see more in order to put them in the top 5, which we're going to get to right now. So who do you have above those teams at the number 5 position?
Taking the solid 5 position is the Peeps. Mm-hmm. They are definitely a gatekeeper right now. I think they have more consistent performances over the likes of KCP and Rogue, but I still think they're struggling to break into the top 4 above the other 4 teams. Peeps are a very good team. Jai's looking more consistent than normal. AJ's popping out mechanically. They're a well-balanced team in my mind.
The thing is that they have some impressive results, right? But they don't have a decisive win. Like, they don't have a decisive victory this split. Not in the course of the tournaments themselves, but a tournament victory. They've won a field, but like they don't have that dub, I guess, from this split.
And that's the main reason I have them at 5th, is because I think they have the potential, but they haven't shown it. They haven't realized it yet. They haven't come into their potential yet.
I think they will. Okay. So would you say of all of your top, where do they rank in your entire top 10 in terms of potential? Would they be the highest?
Potential? I still think the highest they'd be vying for with their current performance and current potential, they'd maybe get 4th.
Wow. Okay. There are a lot. I mean, really, when you get to the top 4, those are heavyweight teams that people are always going to put in the top 4, right? So
there's a lot of competition in the top 4. You have to play really well to break into there.
Is the gap very big between those top 4 teams and the rest of the pack?
I think the gap is bigger between the top 4 and number 7. I think number 5 and 6 are like inching up towards the top 4.
Okay.
And kind of separating the gap between those lower teams and the higher teams. They're like smack dab in the middle, shrinking both gaps, or making one big gap into 2 smaller ones.
So now we're going to get to your top 4, and I think that this is going to surprise some people, especially if they've been watching these power rankings since the start of the season, because this has changed. At least the ordering has changed. At
It
number
has.
4, yeah, at number 4 you have
SSG, Space Station
mm,
Gaming.
that's big.
Part of this, actually, most of this is to lack of results in key series against the other top 4 teams. They unfortunately had to forfeit grid week 9 because of moving. But every other time I've seen them in the past like 3 weeks, there's been missteps against teams that earlier in the split I would have considered them to dominate. So they've kind of dropped off. Throwback to the last time I was on the show, we had SSG at number 1, and it was pretty clear. They had won a couple grids. They had done really well the regional, and they were popping off, but not so much recently.
Yeah, the first half of their season, the first half of their split looks like a Klondike gold rush if you're looking at Wikipedia, and then it just falls off. What do you attribute that to? Is that teams figuring them out? Is it them getting complacent? Is it them losing some chemistry? Like, what do you attribute to their lack of success as of late?
I think there's a tiny bit of complacency. I think at least half of it is due to the other teams really working on themselves throughout the split and improving. Like the teams that have their number right now, you can tell are the ones that have been putting in work to get better. And I think a little bit of complacency, a little bit, mostly other teams just getting better than them at a faster pace. They started off hot, but teams quickly caught up when they realized they had to. They kind of had a fire under themselves with SSG at the top, and they couldn't hang, but now they are.
Middle of the top 5 at number 3, who you got?
G2, our own team. I still think we have potential, but our problem is the 2 teams above us kind of have our number right now. We're going even with them sometimes, losing them sometimes, winning against them sometimes. It's not very consistent. I can't really put us any higher because we haven't shown results in the past like 2 weeks. Kind of fell short in Regional 3, fell short in Grid Week 9, fell short in Grid Week 8. I'm confident that we can come back and actually be competitive in the major, which I think you should respect any of the top 4 teams in the majors as competitive and able to win. So I have no choice but to put us at number 3.
So, just as a sidebar, because you mentioned the major, you have, as we record this, you have a couple weeks to prepare for the major, which means there's no grids. Obviously, the regular season is done now for the fall. No grids, no regionals. The major is the only thing you need to focus on. So with what you just said there about the matchups against the top 2 teams, and we all know who the top 2 teams are, but I just won't say them anyway. But do you like the idea? How much do you like the idea that you have a lot of time now to prepare and watch VOD and game plan with really no other distraction, at least in terms of top level play that you're obligated to participate in?
It's a nice feeling to have 2-week break where we're not in the public eye, because a lot of times we would take the grid as an opportunity to change something with low consequences. The main consequence of that was that if we had a bad performance because we were trying something new that didn't work, people thought they're washed. They're not doing well. They're not playing well. But in reality, we're just using it as testing grounds. And when it works, we win. When it doesn't, we lose, and people think bad of us. And getting rid of that, we can more focus on ourselves. Granted, we do lose the competitive aspect because the grid was a very good opportunity to stress test things we wanted to try out, things we wanted to change. We will be missing that. So it's a trade-off of being out of the public eye, good, lacking competitive testing grounds, bad.
So as I mentioned, the top 2, pretty obvious for anyone watching this right now. The order, though, who do you have at number 2?
I have Envy. I still can't confidently put them above the number 1 team because I think the number 1 team has had more consistent results in the past couple of weeks. But Envy are definitely edging out up there. They've had performances throughout the entire split. I mean, Envy is just a great team. They put in a lot of work. They're playing really well. I just think they're a little weak against the number 1 team. So I can't put them at number 1 right now.
I love that I think you, more than anyone that we've had on the show, values and places the most importance on head-to-head matchups. And that definitely factors in, like Envy not being number 1. in large part due to a head-to-head matchup with the number one team, is very fascinating, especially because they just won a regional. So how tight is that gap, would you say? How many more results do you need to see from Envy before you would say, okay, I think they're ready to overtake number one here?
It's very tight. If Envy win the major, or at least if they win a series in like the top 8 playoffs against NRG,
Mm-hmm.
then I put them above them.
Okay,
I just
fair
said
enough.
it, but oops.
So NRG, consistent results. I was talking about the Klondike Gold Rush. That seems to be the case for them at the top of their list, other than the most recent regional. But they've had a great stretch. And there was a while, though, that we were sort of thinking, when is their first place finish in a tournament going to happen? Because they were consistently getting second place, third place. Sometimes the odd miss the playoffs or make the quarterfinals. But like, that victory didn't come until late in the season. What did you attribute that to?
I think they really just had to figure out that they needed to be confident in each other. I think there was a lack of cohesion in the first half of the split for them. They were 3 gifted players that were almost playing as if it was ranked. They weren't using each other to their utmost ability. They weren't looking like a team on the field. They were looking like they were just playing boom ball, either booming away the ball or letting Justin go for a solo play, not actually positioning Squishy or Garrett in a place where they could either pass to Justin or receive a pass from Justin. Sometimes putting Garrett on the back line too much, where he could definitely be used in the midfield more. And I think like a combination of everyone keeping in their heads that they should be playing as a team. I think that is what really elevated them to the next level. And by next level, I mean going from like 3rd to 1st.
Mm-hmm.
But,
so you're,
yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
I mean, who knows how long that's going to last, because the top 3, top 4 is just so competitive.
It stands to reason that whatever happens at the major, that's going to be the biggest determining factor of any week, right? I mean, the grid was always a point of contention for whoever made these power rankings. Like, do I value the grid more than others? Are they glorified scrims? Whatever the case may be. Some people valued them more than others when putting together this list. But the major, you could say whoever wins the major will have a really good shot, especially if they're already in the top 5. Like if G2 win the major, people won't necessarily argue putting them at number 1, because that's winning a major. Even if the Peeps win a major, you would seriously consider them vaulting them up the rankings because they won, especially if they beat the teams above them on this list, correct?
Yep, exactly. The major is the most stressful tournament of the split, right? And if the team that wins, obviously they will have broken through the most stressful matches of their season so far. And the teams that can do that, the teams that can play under the most pressure and succeed, that's who deserves number 1, because it's so fluid throughout the entire split. You've seen teams go up, teams go down, but the major is where it all matters, right? You're getting big points for qualifying for Worlds. You have to take that tournament as serious as any other tournament, if not doubly as serious. And the team that wins that gets the most points in my book, not only for major qualification, but seeds or points for actual power ranking.
So to recap, top 5 from Jahzo: number 1, NRG; number 2, Envy; 3 is his own team, G2; 4, Space Station Gaming; and 5, the Peeps. Don't forget that the NA Fall Season X Major is taking place from October 18th to October 25th. Jahzo is going to be quite busy preparing G2 for that contest, but he'll certainly be returning on a future episode of Behind the Wheel, which takes place every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Twitch, Twitter, the ESPN app, and on YouTube.